The MonDak Heritage Center is the centerpiece of art and history preservation in Sidney, Montana. With exhibits, galleries, musical events, a research library, and art classes, it's an active part of the Sidney community. This week, the Herald sat down with the man behind the museum, Benjamin Clark. Benjamin Clark joined the MonDak Heritage Center 3.5 years ago. He grew up in Nebraska and has a bachelor's degree in history and a master's degree in museum studies. Previously, he has worked at museums in Texas and Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love history. Even when I go on vacation, even though I spend all day in museums, when I'm on vacation, I still go visit museums.
So why do you think it's important to study history and kind of know it?
We can learn a lot from history. We can learn a lot from the people around us. To be honest, why I love history is just because I love stories. And whether you find that in fiction or nonfiction or both, stories are just important. And with how we relate to others, and history was just what grabbed me the earliest. But I really do love it all. There's a lot of stories yet to be told, too. There's a lot of research to be done, and a lot of stories yet to be told.
Stories yet to be told include local ranchers and farmers in Richland County. With the Richland County Centennial this year, the MonDak hopes to aid with genealogical research.
We just want to recognize the people that are still home or still farming or ranching some of the same land for the last 100 years. That's something that's becoming rarer and rarer as time goes on, as family farms and ranches are disappearing. We're here to put the MonDak's resources to work and to give them that bit of history that they maybe lack, and be able to recognize those people this summer. Specifically, we'll have some kind of recognition during the big Centennial weekend in June.
Leanne Pelvitt has worked at the MonDak for about 8 years.
Do you feel like people here have really strong roots, like historically in the last?
I do.
Yeah.
We're getting that new influx of people, which brings new ideas and all that to our community. But the people that have been here stay here because of family. Most of them, they've owned the land for 50 plus years, or their home, or whatever. So yeah.
Do you feel like these impacts that come with the boom, the increase in population, the overall more activity, affects the museum in any way? Or do you think you kind of stay in your own bubble?
Oh, no, not at all. Well, we definitely are affected here by it in good ways and bad ways, just like everybody else is. Some of the really good ways we've been impacted is just attention. To be honest, people in the state of Montana are very curious about our area. So there have been tourists that have come through just to come visit us, which wasn't the norm very long ago. Also, just national attention, even from artists who just want to exhibit their work here. It doesn't really necessarily have to do with oil or energy or any of that picture. It's just they're thinking of us because we're just so much more visible than we've ever been, and so that's in that way it's very, very good. Some of our great donors are of course our just grassroots level members. They have been supporting us for a very long time, and we are so grateful for that. Because honestly, we don't get support from some of the big energy companies. We do from some of our locals, which is wonderful, but we're not adding a Continental Resources wing or anything to the MonDak anytime soon. I wish we could. That if they happen to see this, give me a call. I'll be happy to discuss that.
So, what's it like to have Ben Clark as your boss?
He's a great boss. He's always willing to help out, and if you have a problem, you can always go to him and chat. And he's just a good friend as well, so that's nice. It's like working with your buddy.
His knowledge, his historic knowledge. Yeah, there he's sitting there like a Cheshire cat smiling. He has a lot. A lot of historic knowledge. Maybe not as much about just our community, but as a whole. and the, you know, the history that has developed what we have and in our community. His willingness to work with us girls. I mean, we throw some brainstorms at him sometimes that are way out there, and he helps us develop them.
Is there a mantra or philosophy you live by in your personal life or in your work life?
Do good.
Do good.
There was a museum guy back about 100 years ago named George Brown Good. And he was actually a fish biologist, and out on the East Coast, and he was actually an early curator at the Smithsonian. And as his career progressed, he got to thinking more and more about what museums are and what they do. And he wrote a few essays that are just phenomenal. Some of the things like I talk about community building and about what today we would call lifelong learning, about how a museum is here to serve the entire public, not just the rich, not just the privileged, which has been honestly a lot of museums' histories. Not so much here at the MonDak, but in other communities that's definitely true. That's what he talked about, was how a museum is a free university for everyone. I think that is so important, to be able to have a resource like that for a community. And that's why communities need museums. Not just to remember their own stories, but to look at what's coming and to think about where they can go. And that's why I think the MonDak's a pretty important place right now in Sydney, Montana.
What's a dish that you like to make?
Oh, anything with bacon. Sure.